right, hello and welcome to another Expert Inside interview. My name is John Golden from SalesPOP, online sales magazine and Pipeliner CRM, joining you as usual from a sunny San Diego. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Will Watrous, who is in Tulsa, Oklahoma. How are you doing, Will?
Right on. Doing great, John. Good to be with you.
Excellent, excellent. And Will works with leadership teams who feel stuck, overwhelmed by complexity, misalignment, or growing pains. His job is to help them cut through the noise and get clear on where they're going. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Will, leadership in business today, whether it's small businesses, mid-sized, large businesses, it's becoming more and more complex because it's becoming so noisy and there's so much distraction and there's so many different like channels and noises coming in. I mean, how do leaders manage to focus today in a world that's just bombarding them?
Well, that's a critical issue, is focus. I always, with teams, use the analogy of the sun. It shines down billions of kilowatts of energy at the earth every single day. And yet we can go outside all day, and the worst thing that happens to us is we maybe get a sunburn. And even that can be taken care of with a little bit of sunscreen. But a laser beam with 2, 3, 4 watts of energy can cut through glass, steel, diamond. Is extremely powerful because it is focused. And as a leader, you are much more like that laser beam than you are the sun. You do not have unlimited resources, energy. And so if you don't focus, you're simply not going to get where you're trying to go. And the way that we encourage leaders to focus is, first of all, there's a lot of pieces that go into it. But the first big piece is understanding that your business is simply a dispassionate collection of systems. Everything that you see going on in the business, the good news is that all of the amazing work your team is doing, the clients that are happy, all of the great results that you're seeing, you and your team are responsible for that. You created that. It's awesome. The flip side, though, is that all of the issues, all of the challenges, all the mistakes, all of the frustrations, you created that too. And so the important thing is to take responsibility for all of it, for the good and the bad. You got to start by owning it, understanding that like all of the results I'm seeing, good and bad, I had a hand in creating that. And that just helps you kind of separate yourself from the issues, first of all, and understand where you need to put your focus first.
Yeah, and that I like what you said there, Will, because that's the starting off with personal accountability, as you said, and saying, okay, these are and maybe some of the reason we are where we are. These are the things that I did that maybe I shouldn't have done, that mistakes I made, but I'm going to but that requires a lot of humility and self-awareness to do that.
Yes. And so, borrowing from Jim Collins, I call it an autopsy without blame. We're not here to point fingers, assign any blame to anyone. We just need to simply know what's really going on here. Can we pull back the curtain? Can we talk about what's really going on underneath the facade? And you're right. One of the big things we work on together with teams is being open and honest. Open means first listen to what each other is saying. I like to say, argue like you're right, listen like you're wrong. You have to be open and willing to hear each other out. And then honest means just say it. Don't be strategic. Don't try to be all tactical. Just get it out on the table. A great team working together can solve it all. But you got to say it. If you don't say it and you're just holding that stuff in your head, now you're the problem. And so we got to get it out there for us to talk about it. But before that can happen, I have to reference Patrick Lencioni's book, The 5 Dysfunctions of Teams, in which he makes a beautiful illustration of this pyramid. At the bottom of the pyramid is vulnerability-based trust. You cannot get there where you need to go with a leadership team if there is not some degree of trust. And there's a whole lot more to that pyramid, but that is the starting point. You can't have that honesty, that humility, that kind of conversation that you need to have with your team if there's not a level of trust first.
Yeah. And if you want to go down the road of open communication, you have to actually want open communication. I often hear, it's funny, you see people say like, oh, we like to be very candid, we like to be very open and transparent, until you say something that they don't want to hear, then they no longer want to be open and they don't want the open community. So you have to commit to it. You had to actually make a decision that you're going to commit to open communication.
Yes, commit and be consistent. It was some general that first came up with this. He would train his team. He would say, every time you'd meet with them, tell me something you know I don't want to hear. And so I train my teams the same way. And what I've found is that leaders will say that to their direct report. And the first time they say, okay, okay, the direct report will say, fine. But the leader has to say that again and again and again. And it's not until the 5th, 6th, 7th time that the leader is saying, tell me something you know I don't want to hear, that the direct report is saying, okay, now I feel like she actually does want to hear this, I'm going to start sharing a little bit more. But it takes the repetition to build that trust and convince them you really do need to know what's going on.
Yeah, because the flip side of that, let's be honest, is when you have an organization of people and they're going, yeah, I wouldn't bring that up if I were you, and no, I'd keep that one quiet. Yeah, we'll talk about this, but yeah, I wouldn't reference that one.
Politics, and I get it, but that's a team health issue. It's a team health issue. 5 dysfunctions of teams is the path to take.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, Will, is what we're talking about now is intentionally building a culture in a company, right? If you're going to say we're going to be open communication, we're going to be whatever, but that requires some discussion and decision about what that culture should be, because a lot of organizations just leave culture to happen organically, and normally it just takes on the personality of the CEO, the founder, or whoever the strongest personality is in the organization. Um, and then, that's your culture. Uh, if you take an intentional approach, a deliberate approach, then you can change the culture.
Yeah, culture is a popular word these days,
Mhm.
and what I've found is that it's really a byproduct. It's the result of some other things that are going on. So first of all, have you as an organization established the core values of the organization? And you mentioned the founder, the CEO having some personality, and that's fine. She often influences the culture very
Mhm.
powerfully.
Yeah.
But it's important for the leadership team to really lock in on a handful of truly core values, that the identifying characteristics that define who you are as an organization and what you want from the culture. And once you have those core values clearly defined, they have to be embraced and exemplified by everyone in the company. And that's a challenge. They can't just live in a drawer somewhere or be on the wall behind the receptionist's desk. They have to be a living, breathing entity within the organization. And those core values are what drive the culture, along with an important second element here is assuming that your team, you have the right people in the right seats.
Yeah.
If someone, so right people, right seats, Jim Collins, good to great. Right people are people who fit your culture like a glove. We say you enjoy having them around. They consistently exemplify your core values. Right seat means they're good at their job. They perform, they hit the numbers, they deliver, they excel. But you got to have both. You have to have people who fit the culture, and they need to be in the right seat. When you have those two things in place, the culture of the organization is going to be everything that you want it to be.
Yeah, but no, I agree with you. And I think one of the things I think that is most frustrating is when organizations spend time putting up their values or they put them on their website. I always call them bumper stickers, right? They put them on
Yeah.
their website, they put them everywhere, but that's not the experience that a customer has, or that's not the experience that employees have. And so you're already setting up something, you talked about trust earlier, you're already eroding that trust.
Yeah, you got to walk the talk. Everyone in the organization is a reflection of leadership. We talked about owning it at the beginning: the good, the bad, the ugly. Own all of it. And so with culture, it has to be consistently communicated. You have to, with core values specifically, that's how you hire, fire, review, reward, and recognize your people. When you have quarterly conversations with your people or you provide one-to-one feedback, they're always being compared back to those core values. When they do something great, when you catch them doing right, you tie it back to the core value and say, that's why I love why you did that. It's exactly who we are. And when they mess up, you have that conversation soon, within 24 hours, because that recency is what delivers the power of constructive feedback. You have a conversation with them where they fell short, and you say, the reason I have a big problem with this is that our core value is X.
Mm-hmm.
And what you did is not X. And this is who we are. We got to uphold this. It's the most important thing in our organization. And when you consistently have those conversations with your team, when you're just drilling at home that this is who we are, this is how we act, this is what people need to be saying about us, then people will embrace us. Will embrace those core values, and it'll become much more effective throughout the organization.
And let's face it, you're taking the emotion out of it, aren't you? When you're just saying, like, this is our agreed, this is our principle or value, this is what this company lives by, this is what we've all agreed. You didn't live up to it this time. How are you going to, what are you going to do next time? But I also wanted to come back on something you said there, because I think this is probably one of the most important things, and we're all horribly guilty of it, is that we're really good at catching people when they make mistakes. We're terrible at catching people doing the right thing. Like you just said, we may notice it, but we don't acknowledge it. We don't say, we just pass on by. And I think that's a habit we all have to develop.
It is something we have to continually be reminded of as leaders, because a lot of our focus and attention gets drawn to the fires,
Yeah.
the big issues. And that's why we're being paid well, is to handle those, to take care of them. But if we're not careful, our default field of view will be always focused on the issues, on the problems. And when you do that, you'll create a pretty negative culture throughout the organization. It's a pretty dangerous thing, actually. So I challenge my teams to set a personal goal, whether it's once a day, once a week, whatever. Find some repetitive cadence where you, on a mission, go out intentionally to catch someone doing good. You call them out, you recognize them for it, you tie it back to a core value, and that's what helps you have a more healthy balance. And honestly, it encourages yourself. Like, you feel better.
Yeah.
You find what you're looking for, and so the leaders actually wind up being encouraged as well.
Yeah, and I worked in an organization once that shall remain nameless, but they were the executives in the organization were great at crisis. They loved a crisis management. They all get together, all jump on planes, all turn up with marshal every resource under the sun, and have a wonderful outcome and all of that, until the next crisis, because it never fixed anything in between, never focused on what led to these crises and all of that. And I think that sometimes, in organizations, is that they're not doing the forensics, and it's not even at a superficial level about what's causing the issues in their organization.
Yeah, there's precious little time being devoted to working on the business. They're always in it, in the middle of it, and they don't set aside time to have a clarity break, or, like I mentioned earlier, Jim Collins calls it an autopsy without blame, to simply really understand what's going on beneath the surface. How could this situation have happened in the first place, and really deconstruct it and understand what are the systems, what are the processes. Very often the root cause of the issue is a system or process related issue, and you got to go there if you're going to get it fixed.
Yeah, I mean, because it's great putting out the fire, but if you keep setting fires at the same time, I mean, it's kind of, to say, it's a bit circular at that point. And I agree. And in this world, I mean, now we have AI in the mix, Will, right, which is always fascinating. And you probably have a lot of people in the workforce now who are maybe a little bit unsettled by the future, maybe a bit unsettled about their own roles, their own thing. This is a time when leaders can really step up to say, we're not Luddites, we're going to embrace the future, but we're going to do it in an intentional and in a managed way.
Yes, intentionality is key, and walking into it eyes wide open, just understand, pay attention, see what's going on. And AI, as you know, is a powerful tool. It's a powerful resource. And a lot of the work that I do with teams, I also point out, I say AI has no soul. And what I mean by that is it's an enormous amount of wonderful information. But when you're making critical decisions in an organization, the human person is spirit, soul, and body, let's say. And so that knowledge piece is like the tip of the iceberg. Everything below the waterline is your soul, your spirit. And it's integrally connected to who you are and how you make decisions. And AI might have some wonderful information, but you better look to your gut as well. You better go down on the inside and really do some soul searching for these important decisions, and make sure that it's aligning with what you as a whole person are sensing as well, because you can make some really painful mistakes by looking at information alone.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think you have to take a much deeper look at this and figure out what your attitude to is, and then how it's going to benefit your business, and how it may there may be areas that it's not appropriate for. But I think you have to be deliberate, because right now we're kind of back in that phase, Will, of you remember when smartphones first came out and people started bringing them into work and using them for work, and like IT didn't know what to do, and this was a whole, bring your own device. Now people are just adopting AI tools in organizations just willy-nilly, and there's no strategy to it.
Yeah, and a lot of it's wonderfully helpful and it's progressing quickly, but there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of assumptions, and people tend to be trusting, I think, and they need to be careful. Trust but verify, as Ronald Reagan said.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what kind of challenge? One of the things that people have told me is that we have the most generations in the workforce than ever before. And I can't remember the number now because some people gave me 5, some people give me 6, I think, and I couldn't figure out what that was. But anyway, regardless, there's a lot of different generations in the workplace. There's a lot of different people who have different communication styles. Like, it's become very complicated for leaders, and certainly I think one of the things that it's impacted the most is the fact that you have to communicate in multiple different ways.
Yes, and when you're talking about employee communication, there's another really important issue here, which is the whole HR component.
Mm-hmm.
You and I don't mean to just gravitate toward the negative side, but you have to be, every employee in your organization, for all intents and purposes legally, is the company. So what I mean is, if one of your supervisors makes a statement to one of their direct reports, they are making that statement on behalf of the company.
Mm-hmm.
And so your team needs to be very intentional, very above board, very clear and clean about how they are leading their people, because they could send a text to somebody and it could be a joke in their mind. But if it's received wrongly, now you've got electronic data that within 2 days, a lawyer can get a subpoena and get access to AT&T and get everything on that device. I mean, everything that's been, sent across that network. And so when you're talking about multiple communication channels, let's say, yes, the phones, also all sorts of issues are coming up with chat, whether it's what are some of the popular Teams or Slack, or people need to be smart and stay professional and be above board all the time, because they don't realize that what they're writing right now could be at some point read before a judge and a jury in a courtroom, exactly as they said it. And they need to maintain that level of professionalism regardless of the platform or the channel. So I don't think that's where you're going, but but
I think it's a great point, though. There's a certain thing called discovery, that if you get into legal issues, you could find that you're very peripheral to this whole thing, but suddenly all of your communications are being reviewed. So I would agree. I would disagree in general, Will, that we've allowed, everything has become so casual. We've allowed, casual communications, like send, talk, writing to people as if you're my lifelong friend from 50 years and I've never even spoken to, this over familiarity, or trying to be clever, or as you said, trying to be funny. And humor is so subjective that, I mean, why you'd want to go down that road, I don't understand. But what I'm saying is, coming back a little bit to being more professional and just being more conservative in your approach to how you communicate, and I mean that in the small c word, obviously. I think people who do that are going to stand out. I really do. I think people who are professional, who are polite, who communicate well, who are intentional, who think about the image and everything they project, they're going to stand out.
Yes, especially with a direct report. Your job is not to be their buddy. You're not their friend. You're to help them become the best version of themselves that they can be in that environment. So it's to challenge them, to encourage them, but it's always in the context of, this is a paid position. They are doing this. This is their life's, their income. This is what their lives are dependent upon. And so you've got to keep that context in mind and be careful. As you said, I agree with you. I think that it's easy to get casual. It's easy to just be too relaxed, to joke around. But there's a lot of power in saying things succinctly and being direct. And it's scary. I'm what I would call a recovering people pleaser is what I should say. And you want people to like you. You want to be friendly, but that's a dangerous line to walk too, because it can cause behavior and
Yeah.
communication that's really opened for. And honestly, at the end of the day, it makes you look weaker. And you are weaker, honestly, than someone who's just clear and confident and says what needs to be said, stands by it, doesn't add a lot of fluff around it.
Yeah, and I think that is so important today, because as we started out at the beginning, like there's so much noise out there. People are feeling overwhelmed. As they say to me all the time, "Oh, it's the busiest I've ever been in my life, John." And I
Mm.
always reply, "Yeah, is it? Or are you just more distracted than you've ever been in your life?" I think it's the latter, because of our, as I always say, our little narcissistic friend over here who always wants our attention.
Yeah.
Uh, and therefore, I think coming back to what you said, is you need to be clear, you need to be focused, and you need to get rid of all the noise, because eventually, nothing good really comes out of chaos.
Yeah, I forget who said it. Some popular author said, "Clear is kind.
Yeah,
Clear is
that's a
kind.
great thing.
Just say what needs to be said." So when I'm working with teams, I say, share 100% of the truth and do it in 100% kindness. So
Right.
say what needs to be said. It doesn't mean you have to be a jerk. Be kind, but say 100% of the truth. Put it all out there.
Yeah, I love it. Listen, that's a great note to end on. Thank you, Will. All of Will's information will be below this video. But before we go, please do remind people a little bit more about you and what you do.
Oh, sure. I am an EOS implementer. That stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. It is a way for teams to, first of all, get crystal clear on where they're going and how they plan to get there as an organization, instill discipline and accountability, so they're executing really well on that. And they're doing it as a healthy, functional, cohesive group of people who get along really well and enjoy the work that they do.
Fantastic. And as I said, go check it out. If you're in that area right now, go check out Will's work. And as you can see, very thoughtful and insightful. So I'd encourage you to go do that. Thank you again, Will. Thank you for watching and listening, and I'll see you all again very soon.